Boom. Wait, are we live? We're live. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Vagabond Dog Industry Chats. This week, you know him and love him. Riggy2k3 is our guest on the show.
It's amazing.
Yes. Creator of the upcoming video game Deluge.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Riggy.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, man. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Now, I have been avoiding as many spoilers as I can, but I have played. I've seen enough to get a gist. Let me see if I can not butcher the description of the game.
Okay.
Deluge is a classic RPG Maker style game where you play a reanimated skeleton that is wandering around, fighting stuff.
Yep.
And I guess the thematic theme that I've kind of gathered from the bits and pieces I've seen is that you're kind of finding a place for yourself. Like, you've been given, like, all the skellies have been given this order to, like, be evil skeleton people, and you're kind of got, you know, the player's free will in there. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what, like, the thematic current of the game is?
The thematic current. Well, it's definitely the point of it is spooky. You know, it is to be spooky, and it is to be a Halloween game. But initially, like, one of the big concepts I kind of wanted to roll with was like making decisions, and like, you know, I've never been one to do that with a game. I always would make something and it would feel really linear. So I wanted to give it options, and I'd played a bunch of games that were a really good influence on that. And so it's kind of just like you start up in this spot and you have no idea who you are, like what you're doing, what you're supposed to do. You were told to do a bunch of stuff, and you have a little bit of backstory, and then that's it. And then so you can kind of make decisions, but it kind of nudges the player to maybe consider different things. And so in like an old school RPG Maker game, I didn't want to make that too complicated, but like I think I found a really good balance of like a narrative, but also like a little bit of free reign. So it's pretty cool.
Right. One of the things I often find when I'm playing a game that is, here's the main directive, but you have agency, is that it often feels like the game is, you can either go down the set path or there's resistance to the path. Is that something that you're playing with a ton, or how do you feel about that sort of like dichotomy of you're either following the road that we've given, or you're following the secret path, which is the opposite of it?
I think
the skeleton path.
yeah, right. I think that for this game in particular, I mean, you have a set path and you're gonna kind of lean that way regardless, but like I think there's reward in going either way, and I try to put like a little reward in going either way when you're met with like a conflict, you know, without identifying said conflict. If you're met with this conflict, you can make two different decisions, and it's kind of a quick decision. And if you don't make the right decision, you know, you kind of have to deal with whatever happens. And for me, the game isn't massive. It's not like these decisions are insanely brutal to your playthrough, but like emotionally, they're kind of supposed to take a little bit of control, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Time will tell, you know, like when it's out and what people think about it in that regard. But from what I've seen from people playing it now, it's really cool and a new experience for me to like bring a narrative together that implies guilt on the player. So like it's kind of something I've seen before that I've never tried myself. So I'm really excited to like get that kind of a feedback, you know?
Right. Now, I've had a ton of experience mucking about with RPG Maker and choice oriented games and these kinds of things. How are you? But you're using 2K3. You're using an engine that's another 11 years older, 12 years older than what I was using, which is insane to me. Are you finding, like, I mean, I know how you feel about the tool generally, but I mean, can you tell us what are the like current hardships of working with such an old tool and making a game like this?
Yeah, So this game was started originally when we did the game jam. We did the
Mhm.
I hosted a game jam with you. For you, everybody used RPG Maker 2003 for those who weren't here for that or never saw that. And like we all created a bunch of games, and the limitations was one of the big like uh the probably the most experimental part for most of the game jammers if they weren't somebody new making it, right? And so when I put the game together, um, after doing the game jam, I was like, I want to complete this. This is something that I'm really into. But that's been the challenge is like seeing what kinds of things I want to do and uh, seeing what kinds of things are possible with the engine. So like I had these ideas in mind for battle animation stuff and for text that's supposed to read, but RPG Maker 2003 does not allow you to do it. You can
Right.
go to these discords that or websites and stuff for people that have just documented the engine from up and down, and they'll tell you you can't do it this way. And so the idea then is to be like, okay, well, with what I have, what can I do with it? And it's made a lot of my design choices like really kind of rough to deal with, because like they don't necessarily fit the vision. But like I think overall, it'll as long as it all sticks together, I don't think people are going to notice the problems that I have with it. Um,
Mhm.
but it is a challenge, and a lot of things I've adapted have actually made the game better too. I think a lot of things made it more, I think, more cohesive feeling, and sometimes the limitations uh, kind of like fit the aesthetic and make it feel like a cohesive thing. One of my favorite things about 2K3 is that it's pixel perfect. It is
Right.
320 by 240 pixels. So when you blow it up, it's still going to look the same no matter how big you put it, on the screen. And that's kind of one of my favorite parts about it, and probably the reason why I've stuck with the engine for so long.
Yeah, I can't. Every time I see it or other 2K3 games,
Mhm.
the aesthetic of and it's 16 by 16 grid square, right? Like
Right, right.
it's really small compared
Yep.
to VX Ace or MV or whatever. Like it is really small, and there's something about pixel art at that compression that is like real pixel art to
Right.
me. Like
Yeah.
it's really like I feel like what we do with the bigger space, it's like you can get more painterly or adjust the style a lot. You have a lot more freedom.
Hmm.
But I love that pixely pixel
Yeah.
the hardness of it.
Yeah.
What have you been doing a lot of artwork for it, or using a lot of RTP stuff, or community assets, or how's your process been for the art?
So the game itself uses the stock assets that came with 2002, well, more specifically 2003, but there is two massive communities that just provide resources and have just been making resources and posting them for the past since the engine came out, so 20 some years. And I've kind of just used a little grab bag of each all that stuff, and so that's kind of been the a really stressful part actually towards the end now because now I'm like trying to credit all these people that have
Uh,
worked on it, and you have these repositories that have like thousands of sprite sheets that are all custom done and have these different poses, and I'm pulling a little bit from each one, just because they're just like the original characters and stuff. And in Japan, with VIP RPG, this community, they just make games using 2000 and 2003 and specifically using the characters. But they've after so long of them building this, like this uh I don't even know what to call it. It's like every single stock character that comes in the engine when you first open it up, all of them have a backstory. All of them have
oh
like
wow.
30 games that have to do with them. And so this website categorizes all of the sprite sheets for each character. And so I'm just trying to read through these things and trying to find it so I can find the skeleton, a skeleton doing a little sword slash or something. You know what I mean? And so that's made pixel art and like doing the graphics and stuff super easy because a lot of people probably don't recognize these sprite sheets either
Mhm.
now unless they're like tuned into RPG Maker, I guess. um, but it still looks unique amongst all the other games that are coming out now, especially especially in like the RPG Maker scope or you know uh, field, I guess.
Right, the grander RPG Maker landscape. I mean, because I
Yeah, yeah.
mean, the majority of what is being released and pushed and published now is all more modern versions of the engine that are using either modern RTP or custom assets or these kinds of things. So it's not like,
Right.
and I mean, let's not forget, like, average Joe game player man typically doesn't know what engine's actually running, doesn't care about if you're using stock. This is a thing that took me a really long time to like get my head around, and it wasn't until like people were saying I made the game in this engine when I didn't, and
Right.
yeah. But the attribution for assets is something you brought up. It was another thing that I found kind of difficult once you hitting that end stretch, making sure that everybody's credited, because I think RPG Maker in particular, like all game engines have a community around them, have people creating
Right.
assets and stuff, but like where Game Maker and Unreal and Unity have commodified this into an asset store, where
Right.
I feel like, I've paid this person for this asset, and now there's no onus of attribution on us, right?
Right.
But because RPG Maker's never had that, and it's always just been everybody just shotguns their shit online, and,
Right. Yeah.
you kind of got to pay that homage properly.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, like, we both know we could get away with not attributing people. Like, it's not like the Dejica police are going to come and knock on our door and be like, well, now you didn't say Yanfly, you used a plugin or this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious then, I know why I do it, but why do you think it's important for you to appropriately credit the people you used to use art from?
Well, man, I know that there's going to be one guy, and he's just clicking through all of the RPG Maker 2000 and 2003 games that come out, and he's like, "You didn't credit," and he's going to just send me an email, But in actuality, it's just what I would want, It's like, I don't mind when people use my stuff, but it means the world to me to be credited it, and like, it's really cool, I think, to see these projects that a lot of like people now that do like pixel art or sprite animations, they borrow graphics from, say, like the Spriters Resource. It's like one of the biggest pixel art websites on the internet, and they do these animations, they do a credits, and the credit runs through and it just says all these names. And for me, growing up in that scene of the pixel art or sprite sheets and pixel art, archival, my favorite thing would be watching these sprite animations and then seeing the credits go, and then you see these names that you haven't seen in probably, for me, I haven't seen in like 10 years, like these old users, and it just like, I think for those people it would probably be a great feeling as well. And like, I don't know, I just think that like if they put the work in, they do deserve the credit, and it's so easy for me to pull these things out that like, why not, So whether it's like a notepad or the file name itself, I try to include who made it at least so I can put it somewhere,
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's all really easy to agree with.
Right.
I'm curious, so with every other game engine having gone down like the asset store marketplace route,
Right.
and RPG Maker being such an asset heavy engine, I'm curious, I mean, because you have a better finger on the pulse of the community than I do. I'm kind of like, I sit outside and then like come in, steal what I need when I need it, and then leave.
Yeah, of course. Respectfully.
Why do you think an asset place, even a third party one, hasn't kind of like materialized over the years?
For like the old for the
any
old
of them,
RPG Maker?
right? I mean, like you get on Steam, you can get the official asset packs from Dejica, but I mean, they're like few far between, and
right,
not really they're not the same as an asset store where it's like we can just make anything, throw it up there, anybody can buy it and download it and use it. It's more like officially gate kept.
Those the with like 2000 and 2003, those like back in the day, like when I first started using it when I was still a kid, like the most common way to get resources for your game was to open somebody else's game and then copy and paste those graphics out and then put them somewhere else. And it was kind of accepted. That's why people would throw their tags on it and that sort of thing. And after that, comes the Keras resource, or the Keras project resources, which is a web page from a German community that has thousands upon thousands of different self-made graphics for those. So with that old school community, they just kind of built their own resources, and so there's pretty much something you need, or if there's something you need, you can find it. But with these new ones, I don't know. I guess because it's more pressure to make a commercial game, maybe, or like that's the whole thing. It's like now you can put it on. You can. It was amazing to play with it for the relay jam that we did, because like that whole time, like I'm trying all kinds.
We have so many episodes with international guests and they don't freeze. Oh, is Riggy back?
Did I freeze?
You froze. It's okay.
Whoa,
You're back
whoa,
now.
whoa. Wait, was I still talking?
Yeah, you were talking about using the new
Oh, the
engine in
new
the
stuff.
jam.
The new stuff. Yeah, yeah. So using it for the relay jam, I kind of saw all the potential and stuff that you can do with it, but maybe that's why. I don't understand. It seems like they put out resources, but they don't do enough. And really, you could constantly be making stuff because people are always making games. And if they're
Mhm.
sticking with that stock, RTP style that comes with, MZ or MV, it's not. Why not do that? Why not cash in? I guess.
Right. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that could also help alleviate the stigma, the RPG Maker stigma. Because when you scroll through Steam's releases that are tagged with RPG Maker, it's like 50 games that all look identical, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
there's that problem. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, but so then I'm curious if you're using a lot of stock RTP stuff
hmm
and relatively familiar community stuff. How are you approaching it to give your game a unique look and feel? Because this is something I always struggle with when I'm using RTP for
hmm
anything. I'm like, oh no, somebody's seen this before. I can't use it, and then I'll go and spend way too long making something custom that nobody cares about.
Right, right. Of course. Um, with Deluge, I took a lot of cues. See, the thing that I have to my benefit is that I've played a bunch of games that were also RTP graphics that people made look spooky. So, or like have like a horror element. So a lot of the things that I learned from like playing The Longing Ribbon, or I just played Schuld, which is like a really cool German horror game. Or Beautiful Escape Dungeoneer, which is like another freeware cool horror game. Like the way that they would do these things, I just kind of kept in my mind and tried. And a lot of times, I mean, just darkening a graphic really makes it spooky. And like you see a lot of emphasis now on like Mario horror games or something, where they like take a Mario game and they make everything kind of feel uncomfortable, and then that carries the horror element. I kind of ran with that mentality for a lot of it, and like with this game specifically, I've worked more with like audio, like just having like a really good audio experience to go with it as
Hmm.
well. So it feels a little bit more immersive, which I think a lot of RPG Maker, like old school RPG Maker games, kind of either hit or miss on. So
Right. And you make music, so are you
yeah,
composing a lot of original stuff music for the game?
yeah, it's all original music. I did most of it. The horror stuff was done mostly by my friend Cam, who goes by Those Damn Bloodsuckers. And then we got one track from our friend Spectrum Brands on Twitch, who goes by Midnight Laboratory, and so he wrote like a really cool jazzy piece that fills in a certain section of the song, the game as well, that I'm really excited about. So all original soundtrack. Most of the sounds are either unique, or if they were borrowed somewhere, they were heavily modified. So that I'm really excited about as well.
Are you sticking in MIDI or are you using the wave?
No way. No, I can't do the MIDI, man. Can't do it.
I had a lot of fun using it when we did the
Yeah,
2K3 jam.
yeah.
That was one of the most fun parts of it for me. It's,
Just listening to old MIDIs, the Linkin Park numb MIDI.
yeah. Oh man, and even I had to download a MIDI editor because like I wanted to cut
Yeah.
certain bits and pieces, and it's like a whole different process. Like I'm not a music dude, but it was a really different experience of editing it, where you're just like chunking out these like quarter note blocks and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Um, right. So now we are coming up to release in just over a week.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
Oh man. I'm working a lot. I'm thankful that I have a lot of free time to put into this right now, because if I didn't, it would be extended. But you know, I after looking at it today, I made a build. I have my play testers that are going to play it, which is going to be tight. After looking at it today, I'm pretty confident. You know, we'll finish up this week, and then next week we test it. We do some promo stuff, and then it's out, and then we go from there. So I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm a little nervous. I don't want nothing to break.
Right.
We'll find out tonight. You know.
Right. And then what are you how are you coordinating your release? Like what's the game plan for shipment?
So the game will be out at midnight on Itch.io. Midnight Halloween, so right before Halloween, so the midnight after the 30th. And then we're doing something really cool on Twitch that I've been putting together with my friend Jan. So if you know Jan, Jan worked on a Twitch integration project for the RPG Maker Jam. So he's helping me with a different kind of project with RPG Maker. So I'm really excited.
That's really, really, really cool. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean, like, have you thought about how the game? I mean, like that. So I guess we can talk about this. You've over the last year developed a rather large Twitch community. I mean, not just on Twitch. Your Discord community is, I mean, huge relative to where it was a year ago. I feel like you've managed to very successfully cultivate a very, very strong community. And obviously I think outreach to these people is easy, but like, you know, everybody wants their game to reach as many people as possible. So how do you have a plan to like go further, faster, harder than ever before?
Well, for Twitch or
for the game, like to get as many hands as possible.
No, I'm gonna hide it. Look, see, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put it on a flash drive in a bottle, cork it, just toss it in the ocean, and then it'll be like someday. You know?
Right. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, that's one strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I've thought about that one.
I think a lot of the time, you know, because we've had periods where, you know, we've been very, very popular in the media, and then that lost a lot of its relevance over the years as streaming and YouTube's became more popular. But like at the end of the day, I think that core community is like what ends up, you know, cultivating that word of mouth to like get the game going. But yeah, I mean, like, is this in a sense just a game you are making for your community then, if you're not going to like try shotgunning it everywhere?
No, I mean, okay, so don't get me wrong, like I'm totally gonna try I think and shotgun it, but one of the things that like this is for me is just like I've never finished a full game. I've never made like something from start to finish, you know, like I did the credits, like a rough version of the credits, and I watched it play, and I played up until that point, and I was just like, oh shit, like I have a full game here, you know, and like that's really new for me. So like I'm kind of taking it. I'm gonna take it a little slowly. We'll do like I have a trailer in mind, you know, that I've slowly begun collecting the clips for, and I've got like some ideas to like shoot it out on the internet around a little bit, but thankfully that is the nice thing of having like built such a cool community of people, you know, and like people that are game developers or otherwise, because it'll be nice to see it pass around that in that part. You know, I haven't really figured further. I'd like to get it on Steam, but I haven't really invested too much time, or I don't even really know if I financially can invest in Steam. I have to like still kind of research that a little bit, but that's why it's just like getting it out is like, for me, that's the penultimate move. That's like the move that I want to do. I want to say, hey, my game comes out, you know, here it is, and the least.
He's done it again. There's something that doesn't want us to hear the secrets from Riggy. Hello. Uh-oh. Riggy? That's so wild. I've never had another guest freeze so bad. I'll be back 1 second. Are we back? Okay, we're live again. There we go. All right. Woof, 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 woof.
Classic me.
It's wild. What do you got to go? Gigs on gigs on gigs going right now, huh?
I'm just pumping so much into this RPG Maker 2003. It's crazy.
Downloading every
Gigabytes on
asset
gigabytes.
ever.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. Yeah. So, okay. Since I've lost train of thought,
Yes.
I'll switch into this track. How do you find developing on stream?
You know, it keeps me motivated. In a way, that's kind of so. For people that don't know, I started streaming and then I got a raid like maybe a week into streaming from Vagabond Dog, and that was kind of like when I started. You know, that this was what I was doing. I was doing RPG Maker dev, and I think it's nice because now I'm starting to meet when I started doing it, I was starting to meet like other like-minded developers, people that were just doing it for a hobby, people that hadn't even seen 2003. So it was kind of like a cool opportunity to educate people as well. And now that I do it now with a nice community and a bunch of homies, like it's a lot of times it's like really fun to just like teach people and educate on the engine. And like I've know so much about it, I didn't realize it was a commodity to have the knowledge of 2003 and that sort of thing. But like my biggest like flexes was having a bunch of people use the engine and make a game over a week. You know what I mean? Like that being able to get people excited about this ancient software is like really cool and not something I saw myself doing either. You know?
Right. It's like being the guy that knows Latin.
Yeah. The Latin guy. Oh yeah, that's a Latin guy. Oh, that's a 2003 guy.
Yeah. Do you find certain because there's definitely parts of development that I can do on stream and parts that I can't do. Like lately it's been brutal because like stuff I'm doing I can't do any of it on stream because it's all top secret.
Right.
Are there specific things that you just can't do on stream because the format doesn't really like?
To be honest with you, writing is always really hard. I hate writing on stream. I feel like people would judge me. I don't even know if they would. It's just like I get like so caught up in my own writing that like I don't like doing it in front of people, and also I don't want people judging my ideas until like I realize them. So a lot of times it's just like scrap writing that just finally gets fine tuned along the way. But that's about it, really. I like figuring out complex things because then it's like you have that gotcha moment where you like feel good and you have people that are like, yes, you did it, you know. But for the most part, it's just like having company while you're working on something, even if people are just talking like about whatever, kind of like keeps your brain moving while it's not just focusing on one thing, which for me has always been really difficult. So I like having the stream running. Sometimes I've just started doing it, but I like doing these streams where I don't even have a camera on. It's just kind of like just hanging out and working on the game pretty casually. And I think it's kept me motivated for a long time. And I did it originally when we did the 2K3 Jam, or not originally, but for this game originally. And like I figured if it was born on stream, it makes sense to just like keep building it on stream anyway, so people can see it.
Right. Do you find that like it alters your productions? I mean, I don't know how much of a production schedule you have, but like I find that when I started streaming dev streaming, I had to like change my workflow a lot because there's like genuinely parts you don't want to show on stream or are like not good to show on stream. Like it can be hard to like put this task on hold until after stream's done or whatever. And versus just like, this is the part I want to do now.
Right.
but I'm supposed to be streaming or whatever. How do you manage that?
I try to keep focus on at least getting some goals done, and so I have some things in mind usually when I start. But also, like, it's all honesty. It's like, dude, some days I can work for 8 hours straight and just dream and do it, and then some days it's three. It's just kind of like being honest with yourself and like not trying to get burnt out on it. Because that's what would happen. Like, this game is 5 months in development, but probably like three where it actually mattered, and that's just because, like, when I'm feeling the inspiration, I run with it, and when I'm not, I just let it sit down,
Hmm.
or I sit it down rather, and like I'm trying to do it that way, where if we get stuck somewhere and it's frustrating, rather than like sticking with it and then having a terrible time in front of people, we just like move on to something else, or we play a game, or the nice thing with Twitch is that your audience is there to hang out with you typically.
Mm.
So like the fun is kind of like being like, hey, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm not feeling great about this, so we're gonna do something else, and kind of, as long as you can roll with it, and you can roll with those punches, like, for this game dev stuff for me, it keeps it fresh and it doesn't like feel like I'm exhausting myself on it, and so that's kind of how I've been treating it.
Right. Now, having gone for, I mean, it's been 5 months, pretty dedicated. I mean, at least 3 of the months of it, you said pretty dedicated work
Hmm.
on it. Has this given you any pause for thought of like, is game dev a thing you would like to do permanently, professionally, or
Right.
is this sort of more of a like, do you like having it as a really involved hobby?
Well, I had one interview where my knowledge of RPG Maker 2003 was very impressive, like just like a job interview. But I think that, like, I love it as a hobby just because, then I don't stress about it, and I don't want
Mhm.
to lose like the joy of doing it, because that's the one thing. It's like I'm not doing this really for anybody else at the same time. I'm doing it for me. I've always been doing it for me. If it wasn't for me, it wouldn't be this engine, it wouldn't be an old school
Right.
thing. So I kind of I don't know if it's something I'd keep pursuing, but like, I love doing game jams. That's kind of like what spawned this anyway, and like that's kind of the thing we get to do, in with you and stuff, and like I like keeping it at that level and like supporting the other people that kind of keep wanting to do it. But now it's like, now I look at a lot of different, like, I have a lot more respect for people that do indie dev, because like the amount of stuff that I've done just here alone is exhausting. And like for somebody that could be doing it part time, like after another job or something, man, I couldn't, you know?
Right.
So,
Now, I mean, you've been working pretty hardcore on this. Are you
mhm.
feeling ready for another jam, or you want to take a break, or like?
Yeah, well, I've had so many ideas, man. And honestly, the most exciting thing for me is when I'm done with this game, I'm probably going to be done with the engine. It's going to be like, okay, this is
Ooh.
this is the ultimate, this is it. This is my final project, for the class. I'm done after 20 years of playing with this engine, and maybe I'll download a new one and I'll I'll use a new engine,
Blowing my mind, man.
right? Can you
No,
imagine?
that's it. Can you imagine? I can't. It's literally impossible for me to
I will
imagine.
be I will be Riggy VX Ace next, right? Okay. And then Riggy MZ,
Riggy NC. Oh
and
my
then
god.
Riggy Unity,
Riggy Unity. Oh my goodness. Uh, yeah. I mean, Jesus. I mean, you could. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people think that there's a bad stigma that RPG Maker is like this baby maker tool that you don't learn anything with it. But the truth
Right.
is, you understand logic, right?
Hmm.
You understand the how to structure things so that they flow, and it's just the methodology that it applies versus any other engine.
Right.
So, um, has there been, like, I mean, you've used other engines before. Have
Yeah.
you ever used a non RPG Maker engine?
Yeah. So for one of your game jams, we did the violin game, which was like like this whatever game.
Mm-hmm.
But for this other game jam, we used the same. I tried to use the same concepts, and I tried to recreate it in Game Maker. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd never ever done that. And for 3 days, I just sat on stream and I tried to learn Game Maker. And I watched this YouTube tutorial, this guy that was really great, and I realized that that is a lot of work to learn Game Maker. you know, and so that kind of scared me away from it a little bit because like that's a big time commitment, I think, but you know, I would consider
no,
maybe.
I think you can. It's just yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing about things that are big time commitments. Generally, they are just big time commitments. It's not like oh no, I cannot physically wrap my brain around it. Like
Yeah.
it's just, are you willing to chunk in the time to get it done? That's cool though. But I mean, I mean, whether you stick with the engine or not, I'm glad to hear that you want to keep making shit and
Yeah.
do more jams, because I want to do more jams really badly.
Yeah, more jams in 2022 as well.
I very rarely get the chance to talk to somebody who's like about to release. So one of my big questions is, at this moment, how do you find development and concluding development different?
Development, you can test it. In development, you can test it and you can pass something weird and you can just be like, that's weird. Keep going. But when now being testing and being close to development, you're like, that's weird. I got to start all over again, probably 40 minutes earlier than what I was just playing. You end up doing that like 60 times, you know, because you're just like, okay, well now I got to get it right. And so the one problem that this engine has is there's no like save state. I can't like
Right.
stop somewhere and then save it. I have to like if I program in a cutscene, I either have to program in the skip, or I have which you know is like a couple events and moving things around, or you know I just start over, or you know and man, for the past 2 days alone, all I've been doing is just like checking. There's like a little highlight icon that shows up when you see a door or when you see like a unique like a key interaction, and I've just been going indoors, going outdoors, going indoors, going outdoors, just because like sometimes they'll break, sometimes they have a switch missing or something, and I haven't touched a lot of this stuff in probably 3 months. So then I'm going in and I'm just like, okay, well now we have to redo this whole organization of this code here, and like, I hate this. I hate it. It's the worst.
Are,
You
are
know?
are you finding any opportunity to still apply creatively to development, or are we purely in fix the
No,
ship
no.
mode?
Thankfully, there's still a couple ideas that I've just been like throwing in at the last minute, and then there's like a lot of little creative like movements and animations and things that are missing, and then the ending with the very end of the game is just like almost there. It's like there, but it's not there. So that's kind of been like whenever I play the game, it's to get to that point. It's to get to the point that I've been working on or whatever, and then saving and then just digging around and seeing what breaks and what works. So that part's been at least enjoyable, I guess, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, there is this intense satisfaction I feel when you're at the end of a thing and something is working perfectly still, or that thing that you haven't touched in 3 months is still working fine, and you're like, yeah, okay, I was intelligent at some point. I managed.
How
To
did
get
you
this.
feel at the end of Sometimes Always Monsters dev?
Oh fuck, man, that was 6 years of my life.
Mm-hmm. So like, what about like the last like 2 months before?
The last like 2 months or more was machete mode, where I
Yeah,
am hacking and chopping things that like
machete mode.
never
That's
have.
hardcore.
Yeah, you have to. Right? I mean, like, especially with a game like that, it's like when you have an open-ended game, right?
Yeah.
And such a long development cycle, you can just keep adding and adding and adding and adding.
Right.
And if you don't have the time to like tie every possible loose thread off, then you've just got to like cut some of the threads off, right at the seam, rather than finding a solution for them. So the last 2 months was a lot of that, a lot of like, well, we're missing these assets. I've already built this scene. We're missing these assets. So it's just like a lot of hoping and praying that everything, art wise or whatever, gets done.
Right.
And then
You should just get a Japanese resource website that has
right,
thousands
yeah,
of,
would be
right?
great.
You know, I
Right,
mean,
no, of course.
I'm sure there's another one.
Well, I mean, Actually, not even gonna lie, like at the end of things, there was some stuff that just like there wasn't enough time left to make everything.
Right.
So I ended up using some random RPG Maker assets, heavily
Hmm.
modified them myself so they fit our aesthetic and our style and everything, because
Hmm.
it's like they don't really like match.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just making lots of my own assets really really quickly.
Right.
Um, but that's about all you can do when you're down to the wire. But I mean, like the actual release moment feels pretty cathartic. There's like there's this brief like maybe 4 hour window when the game releases and you think it's really solid and perfect, and then
Mm.
the first reviews come in. Uh,
Right.
that like are like, oh no, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken. We're like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
fuck. And then it was like directly into patching mode after that, for us, because there's just so much fucking garbage in that game, and had to like improve it. And then I enjoyed continuing to work on it. So
Yeah,
that was that.
nice.
Um,
That's kind of the issue I'm worried about now is when the game drops and it's out, um, like 2003 doesn't have much of a system for patching. So it's
right.
like if this build is broken, like if there's a big bug somewhere late in the game and someone finds it, I got to go in and fix the bug and then upload a brand new
Hmm.
full executable and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to figure out a system for that just in case, but hopefully we test through it and we don't run into that, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we really relied on Steam for. Because VX also doesn't like really update super super easily, but you
Hmm.
like basically you to Steam you upload the extracted folder that would run the game or whatever, and that's what it downloads, and then you upload a new version of that, and it just overwrites the files that have changed,
Okay.
and then that's all it downloads to the player. But I mean, I don't. Again, there could be intricacies in 2K3 where there's some spider webs through every single piece that needs to
Yep.
like
Yep.
update or whatever. But that's the way it goes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Not my
yeah.
biggest gripe with it, but definitely
No, there's
something I'm like, okay.
there's other things, man. Yeah, like I would love to work in 2K3's pixel resolution, but with a bigger, more screen real estate would be is would
Mm,
I would love that. But short of doing my own thing in Game Maker or heavily modding something, there's not much we can do.
right,
Um,
right.
and so, I mean that's an interesting thing also, where um, most games release and then they go, you're very specifically targeting Halloween.
Right.
So, what do you like? You've got it. Not to put too much pressure on you, but like you got to nail it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the idea is that, once it's out, then a bunch of friends and whoever really at that point can play it on Twitch or on YouTube or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like a nice piece for the day, but that is the big fear. It's like I'm gonna drop it and then we're gonna probably go into the way that we're gonna celebrate it that day on Twitch, and the hope is that I don't have to fix it because I'm not going to be able to. I think for that first day, at the very least, if we're doing something that I'm running the game for a stream, so
Right.
I'm trying to come in as clutch as I can, and luckily. Like that's what today and yesterday's been a lot of. It's been catching those bugs and really trying to press my luck with certain things. But these little issues that RPG Maker 2003 has always had are the things that I have to look out for. Whether it's when you like if you do something, if you run an event and another event is running at the same time or is activated at the same time, depending on the order of which you do these things, like you could completely skip over something. And
Right.
so that was a big issue that I've had because I have a couple custom systems in here. And so that's been my big tester today. It's just trial and error if this thing works, but so far so good.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, has it changed your thoughts at all about how you would structure a game to like avoid these problems in the future, or is it worth it to get the design that you've gone for now?
I think it's worth it for what like the risks that it does take with the engine. I think were worth it. Um, but I definitely would go around them the next time. You know, if I were to make the same game in this engine or something, I don't know, weird hypothetical, but
Right.
I would definitely change the way that that was approached. It's just at this point now I've adapted everything to it, so it works. So that's all that matters.
Right. Right. Right, man. So once this is released, your game is
Mhm.
going to be among the pantheon of notable RPG Maker games.
Yes.
Um, this is a very special interest to you. That you play more RPG Maker games than I had any idea existed.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'm curious, like, one, where do you find all your cool RPG Maker games? I guess is my
Yes.
first question.
Okay. Um, so it's kind of like there's like an RPG maker, like old school RPG maker, like Black Market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to go there, you got to say a special word when you get there, you know, and you get in there. But really, it's there's I grew up in the community, like the RPG maker community, so a lot of the classics that I have picked out, like a lot of the stuff that I like to play, is stuff I've known about for forever, just from being on these message boards and being in these communities. Um, so I've always kind of had my hands in this particular engine in all the games that come out with this. So like if you're looking for like a really cool Final Fantasy fan game, I know one. If you're looking for a Mario and Luigi fan game, I know one. If you're looking for a good horror game, a good adventure game, a good game that just wants to be squeaked in, like I've just always kind of had my finger on that pulse just because I've been using this for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But now rpgmaker.net is just the place. You know, so there's thousands of free games there. There's so many, like I've made so many friends from that community that like their games are ones that I've been playing recently. Um, it's just kind of staying in touch with that community because even though you see it on Twitch a little bit or you see it on YouTube a little bit, there's still these massive communities for these engines that like support all these old games and have been updating these old games and like 2K3 because of 2K3 we got Yume Nikki, you know, like and that's like one of the there's or off. There's just so many like massive games that came from this engine that so many other little games didn't get that attention. So that's kind of been my fun thing with Twitch and YouTube has been highlighting these games that I always thought were great and seeing if they really are great and like kind of coming back to them and that sort of thing. But most of them come from rpgmaker.net or any of these archives of old school RPG games that there's so many people that are trying to archive them and keep them together that I'm really thankful for.
Right. What is the overarching theme or not theme thing across all the RPG Maker games that like you like that I mean there's got to be something
Yeah.
that runs
Yeah.
through all of them that you like to make you attracted to the engine and the genre.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I love this engine because I'm a Super Nintendo head, like, till the day I die. It's always been, like, my favorite games have always been Earthbound and Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI and Super Mario RPG, all these Super Nintendo games. And these 2K3 and 2000, uh, both, they encompass that vibe so incredibly well that I love when people make fan games.
Mm-hmm.
I love when people make whatever out of it because it just takes me back to that era. You know, you could put these games on a CRT and they probably would fit at home. You know, they'd probably look like all your Super Nintendo games. And so I always stick to that and I always cling to that rather. And like even with games I play now, that's kind of what I look for is that like retro feeling. And I think that's why I always enjoyed them. I love retro games. And so like I play these because they feel like retro games to me, you know?
Mm-hmm. So, given now that we know what you like about RPG Maker games,
Mm-hmm.
what do you like so much about Skeleton?
Whoa, whoa, whoa! You see this guy?
I
See
see.
him? Wait, where is
Yeah.
he? See?
Yeah.
They're just spooky, man. They're so. I was hoping I had ordered on Amazon. I had ordered a bodysuit, like a skeleton bodysuit, and so I was hoping that would come today, but it didn't come today.
That's a tragedy.
It'd be so spooky.
These so
Um,
spooky.
but dude, you know it's so funny. I just like as a joke when I started Twitch or something. At some point, I had made my avatar the skeleton from Lego, like the really
Mhm.
old one, because they don't even make that one anymore, I guess. And so I just kept running with it, and so then the skeleton thing just became kind of encompassing with all of my branding on Twitch. And then you know they just have uh, uh, they got skeleton sprites on RPG Maker. I was like, this is a no-brainer, you know?
It all just fits into place.
Yeah. Just matched me.
That's good stuff. Veering back a bit. So
Mm-hmm.
I've always had a hard time making. Streaming is at its core about entertaining people.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very hard time doing this, especially when I'm doing dev.
Right.
How do you keep engagement with viewers while you're working on your game? Like, I find it such a. I'm focused on the work, and I kind of like disregard the chat and
Yeah.
don't engage properly and these kinds of things too. And I'm fine with it. I'm doing my work, but I don't think it makes for a particularly enjoyable stream. But I always have a good time when I'm coming to watch you, whether you're working or playing games. So
Thank
what's the
Secret sauce?
secret sauce?
Secret sauce is okay. Look, fresh beats, text to speech, ADHD. I said fresh beats. We'll say it one more time. Just hot beats. But I don't know, man. I think just somehow it just all kind of works together. And I've been pretty lucky, but also I think just in building a community and that sort of thing, people like to hang out in my streams, and like I get a lot of compliments that it's like really relaxed and that sort of thing. So I think that's why it's worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, I think it's kind of unpredictable. And like that's like I'd said before about like, oh, sometimes I just get frustrated and then you're playing whatever. Like some streams that I do pretty frequently are just like downloading a bunch of I'm sorry, loading the ROM from my physical cartridges of Super Nintendo games,
Right.
and then onto my machine, and then I put them on my computer because I own the games, obviously the physical copy of the
Yes.
game, and then I load it into my legal emulation device, and then I play it,
Yeah.
and sometimes I'll do a stream where we'll just like tear through like 5 to 10 of those games, and so I like always kind of being a little inconsistent because I think it keeps my streams interesting, and maybe that's why people like to be around. Also, it's like with this game, I've been hyping it up, and people introduce me as a game developer on Twitch sometimes, and I'm like, whoa, like I wouldn't call myself that, I would call myself a hobbyist. But it is very flattering, and like I think people are really looking forward to what I'm making now because they've been hanging out with me for about a year on Twitch and some change, but I'm not really sure. I'd like
Right.
to say it's me, but also I mean like to your credit, I mean like we became friends because I loved watching, like while you worked, I just liked hanging out. You know what I mean? It was like co-working, and it still kind of feels like co-working, and it's kind of cool too because now that's kind of the environment I get sometimes doing these in the morning. Like, you start work, I get up and I start streaming, and maybe I play something, or I get to work on the game, and then just people kind of pass through and keep you busy, and some people are working with you, some people are working and listening and that sort of thing. So I think it's like a give and take there.
Right. I definitely feel like that co-working thing was something that there was a strong appetite for through the last year.
Yeah.
And I think it's lightened substantially over the
Mm-hmm.
last couple months in particular. But yeah, like I think you've got a point there where adapting to playing and having fun and stuff is makes for a much more relaxed and enjoyable environment rather than
Right.
my shotgun to the computer constantly. There's been like 5 shotguns in this episode. I don't know what the deal is.
What are we doing
But
with those?
yeah, I don't know, too many. Yeah, it's something that's really hard to get the balance of, especially because like you said, like I feel that intense pressure to like gotta be making game, otherwise I'm not doing my job. And like that's bad. And it definitely can drain the fun both out of the stream and out of my life at times. So I think that's something I need to keep in mind a little bit more. So thank you for that. Right. So as we get nearer and nearer to the end of this, and we get nearer and nearer to the release date of Deluge,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about like what we can expect from the game. Like
Sure.
who is this for? Like who's going to enjoy it, and like what should I go in looking for so that I have the right frame of mind to enjoy this thing?
If you like if you like old school Final Fantasy and you also like games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, then like the OG games, then you will be interested, I think, in this game. I think if you like horror games, but you don't like, it's not about cheap jump scares. It's not about, over the top kind of violence or gore or anything. It's just like, just a weird vibe, like a kind of culty vibe. Um, I would say that this is your game. Um, for me, it's a love letter to everything I like, just like everything I make, just like everything I freaking do. And so this game has pieces of Final Fantasy. It has pieces of these horror games I've been playing. It has tons and tons of homages to a lot of different RPG Maker horror games that have really taught me a lot over time, and things that I've borrowed from and that sort of thing. And what I think that the game will be something that if you've got like 3 hours to spend at most, and you want to do something like fun, just a cool like little horror experience, that isn't like you could play with your kids if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, is there any like I don't want to spoil the machine of the game, but
Mm-hmm.
is there like is there a philosophical underpinning? Is there what is the what's the question of the game, man? What are we really getting at here?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Question is, are skeletons cool? And the answer is absolutely coolest.
Man,
That's it.
should have known.
Yeah, philosophy for me. Come on.
Fair enough. I've played plenty of your jam games. I think there's definitely something going on in there.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. So okay, is the itch page up now?
The itch page is up. It is not updated, but it will update with the trailer this weekend. And then you'll just, if you hear from me at all, if you pay attention to any of my socials, they will all be about the game for about a week. And then it comes out on Sunday, October 31st, at midnight, the night before. And please play it.
Right.
That's it. That's the whole pitch for that.
I'm gonna drop the link here real quick. That's the link. Go. Can you follow a game on itch? I don't know.
I think you follow me.
I still don't know how fucking itch works, man. But yeah, that's that. So people go to itch and look at game and get excited for game.
Yeah.
Dude, I love the text display in it. It's like I know how much work that took, man. I know how much fucking work that takes. That's
so the issue I'm having now as I'm finalizing text is that so the text reads slowly, which is a code. It's like a little text code, and then if you're doing a text box on the right side of the screen, you have to manually space it over, right? And so I'll do that, but then I'll do the next line the same amount of spaces. It'll read every space. So you'll have that first line where it's like, "Hey, it's a very nice day we're having today." Like so trying to figure these things out are the problems that I face with this engine. It's like, how do I circumvent all that time that's spent waiting for the message to read, like things like that people probably never consider, but for the style for this game, that's like been my biggest challenge.
Yeah, that's the one thing where I just start editing this script to
yeah
it's a very nice day,
a little bit less.
Period. Yeah, like we don't need to go on too long because it's not worth the effort, man.
Right.
Yeah, but man, I'm excited. I'm so proud. I'm hyped. It's gonna be fun.
Thanks, man.
We're looking forward to it. And then when should people tune in for the stream?
So we'll probably do the stream. So that'll be Saturday night, October 30th. We will do a celebratory stream, which will just be us hanging out. But then I want to say it should start right away on Halloween, like to coincide with the release. The stream thing will happen. As long as there's no hiccups, but we'll figure that out as we go. But that'll all happen together at midnight, October 31st, EST, Eastern Standard Time.
Right on. So everybody follow. If you're not following, I mean, I know you are all following Riggy already on Twitch, so it's not a big deal. But go follow, make sure you're watching, and that'll be a lot of fun. And my dude, thank you so much for coming on. And best of luck with the release.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. I'll see y'all later.